Yep. Cool. All right. Anything else before I get into my little spiel about VAs here? Cool. All right, I'll get into it. If you guys have any questions, just raise your hand or something in the meantime, and I'll stop every couple of sentences here to open it up. But all right, I'm going to get into the notes that I took before we get in here, or before we started this call, just to talk about hiring virtual assistants, kind of our process for how we look for talent, how we interview that talent, how we go about onboarding and training that talent, and then kind of building like a team culture and dealing with underperformance. So I'll get into that. So as I was talking about onlinejobs.ph, that's where I get most of my virtual assistants. The only people that I haven't got from onlinejobs.ph was Bella, who is our lead manager. She came through one of the first cold calling services I ever used, and then she reached out to me once her non-compete was over. But everybody else, actually no, there's two others that were referred to me by Alex Otwell. If you guys know him, he used to be a fix and flipper. Now he's getting into oil, or he is in oil and gas, and he got rid of his sales floor. So he asked me if I needed any virtual assistants. So I took two from him. But other than that, everybody's come from onlinejobs.ph. It's basically like it's almost like a LinkedIn or no, I don't know if LinkedIn is the right way to say it, but it's like a job board / LinkedIn for virtual assistants in the Philippines, right? You go in, actually, you know what? I'll log into onlinejobs.ph so you guys can see it. So I go in here and I'll post a job posting, and I probably still have it to where I can show you guys what is going on. This is not what I'm looking for. Onlinejobs.ph. There it is. So I go in here, I'll log in, and I'll just post our job posting, and you'll get a bunch of, you'll have like 20 responses like in a day. So let's see, job messages. How do I get into this? Oh, job posts. Here we go. All right, so this was the last one I posted. So you can see 46 applicants on this one, 136 applicants on this one. So it's you'll find a good amount of talent in here. And so what I'll do is I'll just post this in onlinejobs.ph. Full-time, $960 a month base salary, which is $6 an hour. That's where our virtual assistants start out at. And then I had AI type this up. We're seeking a proactive and motivated individual to join our real estate investing team, blah, blah, blah. You'll play a crucial role in identifying potential sellers. Key responsibilities: cold calling, qualification, building rapport, effective communication, documentation, maintaining notes and detailed records of calls, and then team collaboration. Qualifications, benefits. We talk about competitive salary with performance-based benefits, or performance-based incentives, opportunities for career growth and skill development, all this sort of stuff. So basically what we say with this is, hey, if you're interested, please apply and send in I don't think I have it on here, but I say resume with a call recording. And also I ask them for a screenshot of their internet speed. And the way that you can do that is with Ookla speed test. If you go here, this is a free website that you can go to and just automatically test your Wi-Fi. So I'll ask them to run this test on their computer and then send a screenshot. Wow, my Wi-Fi is really slow right now. I'm usually like 300 megabits per second. At least I'm coming through okay. But this would be pretty bad in the Philippines. You're wanting to be, Nate and I were actually just having this conversation the other day. He had somebody that they were having really bad contact rate. And so he ran a speed test, and he was at like 35 or 37 megabits per second, which is pretty slow. It's going to be better. It's going to be worse in the Philippines than it is here. This is atrociously slow for me. When I ran this last time, it was like 300 something. But anyway, a speed test for the Philippines, you're probably going to want to be somewhere between like 60 to 100 megabits per second. So you want to make sure that they have good internet, right? Because if you have bad internet, if you have bad internet, it's going to make everything a lot tougher. So let's see, I'll go back here, pull up my notes again. So yeah, so we, on our job posting, we say, hey, please send in please send in a resume, a call recording, and a screenshot of your internet speed. And then what we do is we will interview the ones with good internet and lighter accents, right? So I'll just listen to their call recordings. And if they have a heavy accent, I don't even respond. I just archive it. I only respond to the people that like their calls sound like they could be somebody in America, right? And unfortunately, that's just how it is. People in America are racist and they hang up on people if they have an accent. Unfortunately, it just is what it is. So, yes, we ask them about, we'll take the ones that actually have a good call recording and a good internet, and then we'll ask them to come in for an interview. Once they do, the interview just kind of flows like this. We'll just give an intro about us and the company, talk about like what we do, who we try to serve, how we try to serve them. And then we'll ask about their experience, their skills and their weaknesses, their availability, which is a big one. You want to make sure that they are okay with dialing 40 hours a week and they're going to be flexible, or they're going to be able to work like, consistently. They're not going to have times where they have to be off for a long period of time. Or some people are like, I can only work 4 days a week. So, and it's going to be tough to get 40 hours in dialing at 10 hours a day, because then it's just going to be tough to maintain energy for 10 hours. So you want somebody, I ideally like people that they're actually okay with dialing less hours per day, but dialing on Saturdays as well. I'll let our people do that all day. Like, so what we do, I don't actually give them a time that they have to clock in and clock out. I just tell them, hey, you got to get in 40 hours of dialing a week. It's actually 39 because we have 2 30-minute meetings every week. So, and they get paid for that. So they only have to get 39 dialing hours per week, and they can do it whenever they want. Between the hours of, we have dialing windows of 8, they can't dial before 8 a.m. and they can't dial after 7 p.m. on Monday through Friday. Then on Saturday, they can dial between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., but they can't dial before 10 a.m. and they can't dial after 3 p.m. on Saturdays. And then we don't dial at all on Sundays. But I give them that flexibility to control their schedule so that I don't have to micromanage them. And I want people that I don't have to micromanage, right? And it's better for team culture for them to be able to have a little bit of autonomy over their schedule, rather than thinking, oh, if I'm not on the phone by 9:01 a.m., Nick's going to be messaging me, where the hell are you at, right? I don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. So I give them the freedom as long as they are able to budget their time correctly and get all their hours in. If they don't get their hours in, then we'll put them on a specific timeline, but I haven't had to do with that with any of my virtual assistants. Anyway, I'm kind of getting past, that's kind of down here, but anyway, with the interview, we'll ask them about their experience, skills, weakness, availability, and what we're listening for here. I'm not like, obviously some sales experience and some real estate experience is good. That's always preferred, but I have people that are on my team that had no real estate experience before joining my team. But when I got them in for an interview, they were personable, they were positive, they were confident in their speech, right? They had a positive, upbeat attitude. You'll get some people on the phone in your interviews that like, you can tell that they don't want to be on that interview and they just need a job and they're just hoping to get hired, right? They're going through the motions. They're not excited about life, right? They don't have a positive energy. If they don't have a positive speech and a positive tone with you during the interview, they're not going to have it with sellers, especially when it's hour 8 of them dialing for the day and they've dialed every day that week too, right? They're going to lose motivation. They're going to lose energy, and energy is huge when you're making cold calls. So I'm listening for people that have good English. Obviously they have good English or they wouldn't have made it on the interview. And I'm listening for confident speech, personality, and a positive attitude. Anything else, like I can train them on how to ask the right questions, but I want somebody that's going to be able to effectively communicate with people and not make them feel like bored as hell talking to them, right? Any questions on that before I get into the hiring? Cool. So after that, what we'll do, and here's the thing, I'm not super strict on our interview process. If you pass the initial test of like, I have a quality conversation with you and you seem like you're a reasonably intelligent person and you can communicate with me, look me in the eyes and have a positive conversation, then a lot of the time I'm going to hire them and I bring them on for a 2-week probationary period, which is what Nate was talking about before we got into this. And I really like this for a couple of different reasons, because first of all, it allows you, I like the attitude of hire fast, fire fast, right? Hire fast, fire fast, get them in the door, get them established or get them familiarized with your systems, and then let them tell you if they're willing to stay or not, right? Let them show you if they're going to be a good culture fit. And a lot of the times, especially if you have things set up for them, you'll know long before that 2 weeks whether it's going to be a good fit or not. And if they are going to be a good fit, you know within the first week, right? A lot of the time it's pretty quick. But I like to set it up for a 2-week probationary period, and the way that I kind of frame it is like, hey, so I think this is going to be a good fit, but I like to have new hires come in and get a feel for us, get a feel for our systems, make sure it's something that you want to do, make sure that it's a good fit for both of us. And then after that 2-week period, and you're going to be paid for it all, of course, you're going to be paid for the 2 weeks. But after that 2 weeks, we'll reconvene and we'll see if this is still a good fit, or if we want to maybe go our separate ways. And if it's still a good fit, then we'll bring you on as a permanent member of the team. I have never gotten to the 2-week period. I've never had to actually have that conversation. They either let themselves out the door if they know that this isn't a good fit for them, or we know within like the first week or two, and I'm just like, hey, you're in. Let's keep it rolling, right? So I've never actually had to have that 2-week conversation. They've either made it clear that they wanted to be there and that they're going to be a good fit, or they've quit within the first week, which is great. Either of those are fine with me. So when I hire those people and I bring them on for the 2-week probationary period, really, I'm just monitoring their timeliness. I want to see, do they show up on time? Nate, did you have a question?
Yeah. Do you change anything in between their probationary period and like they're actually on the team, or is it more of just like this gray area of like, hey, by the way, you're in like a testing phase, you're not in yet, versus
yeah.
Now? It's more like
there's no official difference. It's just, yeah, exactly. I want them to know when they come in, hey, you're not like officially on the team yet. You're kind of in a tryout phase. And then if they are, we just, hey, congratulations. We'd love to have you on if you still want to be with us. And they're always like, yeah, thank you so much, blah, 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 whatever. So, but yes, nothing really changes. It's just kind of a mindset thing. Yep. So, and during those first 2 weeks, I'm not like expecting them to come in and just light the world on fire and send in a bunch of great leads, right? If they do, that's great. That's awesome. But I'm not expecting that. What I'm looking for, do they show up on time? When we have meetings, do they show up on time? Do they get their hours in? If they miss their hours on the first week, that's a bad sign, right? And I've had that happen before. They let themselves out. I bring them in on a Monday and they get 15 hours in the first week. And I'm like, what are we supposed to do here? But a lot of the time they let themselves out. So I'm monitoring for timeliness, coachability, responsiveness. If I send them a message, do they take an hour to respond to me on WhatsApp, or do they respond quickly, right? And I'm listening to their calls. Do they have energy on the phone? Are they, there's a big difference between, hey, Nate, hey, man, I was calling you. My name's Nick. I was calling you about a property I think you own on 123 Main Street. Well, we actually wouldn't use the 123. Hey, Nate, this is Nick. Hey, Nate, this is Nick, man. I'm calling you about a property I think you might own on Main Street. You interested in selling that by chance? Right? There's a huge difference between that and, hey, Nate, this is Nick. I was calling about a property I think you own on Main Street, and I was just curious if you might be interested in selling the property, right? I'm listening for stuff like that. Are they upbeat? Are they energetic? Are they positive on the phones? Or are they just going through the motions and obviously they're just trying to get the dials in and get the hours in so that they can get paid for the week, right? That's the stuff that I'm listening for. And then I want them to focus on filling the funnel and having quality conversations. I'm not like, hey, I need you to send in a lead that's going to be an appointment this week. I need you to book 2 appointments for me this week. They don't even book appointments, right? My virtual assistants still don't book appointments. Our cold callers, they do not book appointments. They do absolutely nothing but have a quality conversation with the seller, collect some information, and then send the lead in and let Bella and Gabe take it from there, right? So I'm not telling them, hey, I need 3 quality leads in the next 2 weeks or you're fired or you're not going to make it, right? That's not at all what we're doing because they don't have any control. There's so many different things. I could give them bad data, They could have bad internet. They could have some kind of problem with, especially in the Philippines, they have a lot of like rainstorms to where sometimes their internet will be spotty for a little bit. There's a lot of things that are out of their control to where I don't want to say, hey, during your probationary period, you need to get us hot leads that we book appointments with, because they don't have control over that. So I want them to just focus on filling up the funnel and having quality conversations and focusing on, you guys have heard me talk about it on every single call. And I talk about this on every single call with my VAs too. And that's the 4 pillars of qualification. Everything always comes back to the 4 pillars of qualification. We really don't even have a script. Like we don't have, I'm sorry, I'm getting a call. I think that's our office phone. So Gabe will pick that up. Everything really comes back to the 4 pillars of qualification. We don't have a script. Our conversation is not scripted. I have tried to use a script before, and I found that it just made cold callers robotic. They were not using their personality. They were not being a human being. They were just reading off a script because they were like, Nick wants me to follow this script exactly. So I need to be robotic and I can't have right. I found that the more I tried to script their conversations, the less human beings they became and the more robotic they became. And that's not good for sales. So I just focus everything on the 4 pillars of qualification, which are the condition of the property, their motivation, their timeline, and their asking price. That's all the information that we need on that first call. Just have a conversation with those people and bring it back to the 4 pillars, right? They're probably going to get off on a tangent and talk about their grandkids, talk about their car, their boat, their dog, whatever. That's great. Have that conversation with them, but then bring it back to the 4 pillars of qualification. So every phone call that you're having, you're making a good impression with that seller. You're having a quality conversation where you're actively listening to them, and you're framing that conversation around the 4 pillars of qualification. That's our biggest thing. We're focused on filling up the funnel and having quality conversations. It's not, I need a lead, I need an appointment, I need a contract in the next 2 months or 2 weeks. Sorry. Acquisitions 1, what do you got?
How often do you listen to your VA's calls?
When they're new, I listen to a lot of them. I don't listen to a ton of their calls anymore unless there's underperformance, and we'll get into that down here. But when it's their first 2 weeks, I'm listening to. What I'll do is I'll go through and I'll listen to any of their calls that are over a minute. Right? I don't really want to listen to all the people telling them, no, take me off your list. I'm not interested. I'll listen to a couple to make sure that they're saying like, okay, well, do you have any other properties that you might be interested in selling? Right. Stuff like that. I'll listen to that sometimes, but especially when they're new, I'm taking those calls that are over a minute and listening to those, because or else you could spend all day listening to phone calls.
And does the same go for like doing role plays with them?
As far as, what do you mean by that?
Like you'll do more when they're new, but now that your guys are more experienced, you don't really do them anymore.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's kind of to get, because again, like I've found, I mean, it's good to like train them. Our training sessions really just look like me reminding them about the 4 pillars of qualification. We'll listen to a call. If I have a really particularly good call from one of our callers, I'll play that for the team, and like I'll ask them, what was good about this? What did you find that was really good? Like, did you learn anything from this call that maybe you could implement into your calls? Stuff like that. We'll do that every once in a while, but it's not like I'm not analyzing their calls every meeting. The meetings a lot of the time are more just to get everybody in face to face, have a little bit of time to talk about the goals that we have, talk about the KPIs and stuff like that. But yes, especially when they're new, I do want to be listening to those calls, giving them feedback, and doing some role play. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. And then the last thing with hiring, which I guess this can also kind of be with training and culture, but we set weekly lead goals and establish a bonus structure for hitting them. Right. So again, they're not like, hey, I need to have a contract. That's not their goal. Their goal is to just send in qualified leads that they talk to, and they get, I would say, at least 2 of the 4 pillars of qualification, at least one of them being an ugly house. And I guess it doesn't always have to be an ugly house. I would say it has to at least have a motivation or timeline. If they don't have either of those, it better be a really ugly house. But their goal, their job is to send in qualified leads, not necessarily to book appointments or anything like that. So, but we're setting weekly lead goals and establish a bonus structure for hitting them. For example, my team, let's see, I'll pull up, let me go into my drive here and I'll show you our structure. This is our bonus structure for our lead generation specialists. So if they get 7+ quality leads sent in 1 week, they get a $25 bonus. They get a closed deal from a cold calling lead. They get $150 bonus. They get $150 bonus if they are the cold caller responsible for the lead. But even if they're not, even if it was somebody else on the cold calling team, they get a $20 bonus, right? Why do I do this? It gets them working as a team, gets them excited about each other's successes rather than only caring about their own performance, right? So if somebody else sends it, if we get a deal, let's say we close 3 deals in a month, all from cold calling. Well, there's 3 different virtual assistants and they're going to get a $150 bonus, but everybody else, even if they didn't even get a deal that month, they're still going to make $60 in commissions from their teammates getting deals, right? And then also every 100 quality leads sent in, they get a $100 bonus, and it resets every year on January 1. So they can have a running total of the leads that they're getting, and they can kind of, it's almost like they're working for a high score, right? And then down here, there will be scoreboards on the activity page of Podio, keeping track of each caller's stats. I'll show you guys that. I actually just implemented that like within the last week or two, and it's been pretty cool. And then if a deal closed from cold calling is smaller than $10,000, the bonuses are reduced by 50%. The reason for that is because we're shooting for deals that we're going to make at least $10,000 on. And if we don't, let's say we make a $3,000, $4,000 assignment fee, I don't want to be paying out a $150 bonus and $20 to everybody else, right? Because that just makes it skinny. So this is all assuming we get at least a $10,000 assignment. Nate, what's up?
For your quality leads, how do you market in your Podio that like, okay, like for example, like right now I have it that as soon as they press like new opportunity in Mojo, it goes straight to my Podio and it becomes like a lead that hasn't been touched yet, but I don't have like a way to mark if it's a quality lead. And what would you define the difference between like a lead that you would keep in your system versus something you would say, okay, that's a quality lead that I obviously want to have in the system?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll show you our Podio. Let's see, where is it? Oh yeah, down here, the cold calling stats. So leads this week, this is only quality leads, right? This is only qualified leads. And if we go into this, this is actually supposed to be, I need to update that because it's supposed to be more than just that. Okay, so this is supposed to be hot lead, warm lead, cold lead, signed with someone else, under contract, or close, right? And this is assuming if we put them under contract the same week. But this is what would be a quality lead for us, is one that we mark as either hot, warm, cold, or they signed with somebody else, or we already put them under contract, right? It's never going to be a closed deal because we're never going to lock up a deal and close it in the same week. Maybe not never, but we haven't yet. So this is what we consider a quality lead. And the way that a lead will get one of these designations, obviously if we put it under contract or if they've signed with somebody else, then that's that. But if it's a cold lead, this is somebody that has a defined problem. It's an ugly house, and they either don't want to sell for 3 months or more, or they don't know when they want to sell, right? They have a defined problem. They have an ugly house, but they don't know exactly when they want to sell. That's a cold lead. A warm lead, same thing. Defined problem, defined timeline, ugly house. They want to sell in 90 days or less, right? 60 to 90 days, well, 30 to 90 days. A hot lead, that's somebody, let me rephrase that because I kind of rambled there. Cold lead, 90 days or more, or undetermined timeline. Warm lead, 30 to 90 days, still defined motivation in an ugly house. Hot lead, defined motivation, they want to sell in 30 days or less, right? So it's mainly off of timeline. And we're assuming that all of these, they either have a defined motivation, or their house is really ugly, or both. and then they're qualified in here based off of timeline. So then if we go back to our activity page and we take a look at this, then I can see leads this week. And this is also why I want to look at this from, I pay attention to leads this week and leads last week so that we can get they can get bonuses. But I like looking at leads this month, and I like looking at inputs more on a monthly basis, because as you can see, I mean, we've got some people that they have 6 leads this week, others that have 1. I'll have people that they'll send in one qualified lead 1 week and 15 the next. Like you can see, Carlos, he had 11 qualified leads last week. This week so far, he's only got 2. So I like to look at it from a monthly basis. We have incentives set up on a weekly basis, but I'm not going to tell Alex, dude, what the hell were you doing? You only had 1 lead this week, right? I'm going to look at what he did. He was out last week because he just had a baby, but I want to look at how they perform over the month rather than a week to week basis, because again, could be bad data. They could have problems with their dialer, all different stuff that's out of their control. Did that answer your question, Nate? I know I just kind of rambled there.
Yeah, I think so. I guess maybe my question is more of like, when it comes into the system, like your cold callers talk to them and then they press lead, does that automatically go to your Podio account?
Yes, it'll automatically go into the Podio account and it'll show up as a new lead. It'll be tagged as a new lead right here, right? So every new lead that comes in, it shows new lead, and then it'll come in with these notes right here in the call recording. They'll attach the call recording right there. So Bella will listen to the call recording. She'll read those notes, and then she'll determine, is this a qualified lead already? Do we have the 4 pillars of qualification, or at least enough to determine if this is a cold, warm, or hot lead? If it is, then she'll mark it. If it's cold, she'll keep it. If it's warm or hot, she'll assign it to Gabe. And if we don't have all the information that we need yet to determine one of these, then she puts needs qualifying. And then she'll just call them like every couple of days until she can further qualify that lead. And then she marks it as one of these.
Okay, that makes sense. Because mine, I thought it'd be the same thing that you got, but it's kind of like there's a temperature and then there's a stage, and stage is like mixed in between like untouched, contacted, under contract with others, and then a whole separate thing for warm, hot, cold, dead. And it's like, okay, this is simpler and makes more sense.
Yeah, I was actually going to tell you, I forgot to bring this up, but I remember when you were showing me, or maybe you shared your CRM with me, because I know that you asked Simple, what's this called? Whoever this company is, I'm blanking on the name of them, but you asked them to basically copy my CRM, like the build out that they did for me. They copied the template that they gave us, but then we customized it further from there. So what we have, it's very simple. We have, because when we first got it, there was like 15 stages here, right? There's like 15, yeah. So we just want, hey, name, phone number, email. Is it a new lead, needs qualifying, hot, warm, cold, retail, ghost, dead lead, signed with someone else, under contract, closed deal, or other. Acquisition manager, Dropbox link, follow-up date, property address, initial conversation notes, who sent the lead in, if it's a cold call lead, couple of comps, a link to the Zillow page, and then date offer made, offer status, right? So there's a ton of stuff in the, like, I remember there was even like asking price, there's mortgage balance, whole bunch of different stuff. I'm always a fan of keeping things simple and keeping it just simplifying everything. And so I would definitely suggest that I can share this with you if you want to copy that and kind of modify yours.
Send me your username and password and I'll just have access to your Podio. That works too.
There you go. That works. Yeah. You'll have access to about $2 or $3 million worth of leads.
Yeah. I mean, the big thing is the stage and temperature. Cause like that's my issue right now. It's like, oh, submit a lead, but there's no way to like track, okay, is it a quality lead? And then, cause I don't care about how many leads get sent. I just care about how many quality leads get sent.
Yeah.
I mean, both is nice to have versus me like ballparking it, but yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. This is definitely a good way to do it, is just cleaning these up to where everything is qualified. If it's a qualified lead, it's by timeline, right? Everybody that is a quality lead, they already, again, have a defined motivation and or a really ugly house. So then it's just figuring out what their timeline is and what their asking price is. But yeah, keeping this simple has definitely it's been good for us.
Yeah.
And then all these only consider quality leads, but they can see exactly where they stand on a weekly basis. Where was I in this? So okay. So we'll set weekly lead goals. I showed you guys our bonus structure and stuff. This just gives them weekly incentives that they can hit and gets them to, it prevents them from going through the motions, right? Because if they're only going to get $6 an hour and they're not going to get bonuses for performing better than, if they're not going to get performance-based incentives, then you're just asking them to just go through the motions. If they don't care how many leads they're sending in, because they're not incentivized to send in more leads, then they're just going to go through the motions, and they're going to not have the energy. They're going to not have the same, they're not going to actively listen the same. They're not going to dig as deep because all they're doing is counting contacts and clocking hours, right? So I like to have weekly goals for them. Training, especially like Raphael was asking, especially for their first like 2 weeks to maybe a month, we want to go over call recordings with them, make sure that they understand, hey, base everything off of the 4 pillars, make sure that they know the structure, or make sure they know that, and to structure their conversations around it. Again, we don't really have a script. It's just ask them about the condition of the property, then get into, hey, so why are you looking to sell? Or when are you looking to sell? Typically we can close in 30 days or less. Would that work for you? No, it won't, because I need, my tenant's not going to be out until the end of next month. So I need to sell at the end of next month. Okay, boom. You just got motivation and timeline. They're a tired landlord. They don't want to be a landlord anymore. Now they're going to sell once their tenant's out at the end of the next month, right? And after that, after you get that conversation, okay, well, hey, do you have a price in mind that you're looking to get for this property? Right after you're having that conversation, you ask them, okay, well, hey, what can you tell me about the property condition wise? Have you done any updates in the last 5 to 10 years, or what kind of updates have you done in the last 5 to 10 years? Because I like to ask open-ended questions. Then they'll tell you about that, and they might go off onto a tangent. And then you get into the motivation or the timeline, and then after they talk about the motivation and the timeline, then you get into the price. Boom, you just had a whole conversation. You got the 4 pillars of qualification without having to follow a script, right? Without flipping through. I remember when I did have a script, I could listen to the calls and I could hear them like flipping through pages and trying to like look at like, okay, the seller said this. What am I supposed to say here, right? And it's going to make for tough. It's going to make for tough cold calls when you can hear them flipping through pages to try to find out what to say. So I just tell them, hey, every meeting we're hammering down on the 4 pillars of qualification. And I say, be a human being and have a conversation, make a good impression, and get as much of this information as we can right on that first call. And then we're keeping the energy light and positive, right? For in our meetings, we're not saying, hey, you need to do this better. You need to blah, 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 whatever. We're trying to keep it very light and positive, and for every piece of negative critique, we want to give at least 2 positives. This kind of sounds crazy because you kind of think, well, I should be able to coach them and I should be able to tell them when they're doing something wrong. I don't know if it's a cultural thing over there, but a lot of Filipino virtual assistants, they're like absolutely deathly terrified of getting fired and losing their job, because that's one of the biggest problems over there is inconsistency with employment. I always ask our new hires about like what they didn't like about their last jobs or what was wrong with their last jobs and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of them said like, well, I would work for somebody for 2 months and then they'd fire me, and then I'd go work for somebody else for 2 months and then they'd fire me, and all this sort of stuff. So I think if you give them too much negative critique, they're going to get inside their own heads and they're just going to self-implode. So obviously you want to give them, if they have things that you need to correct, then obviously correct them, but mix that in with a bunch of positive reinforcement. Kind of sounds like treating them like children. I know, but it's just, I found that it works. Being positive and sprinkling in a little bit of critique is always going to be more effective with them than kind of being a hard ass boss, right? All Okay, and then dealing with underperformance, we will audit calls. So this is kind of when Raphael was asking if we listen to calls once they're established and on the team. Not really. Sometimes we will. I have a form that they can submit if they think they had a particularly good call that would be good for training purposes, and if they do, we actually have like a little competition for submitting good leads or good calls where they can actually they can earn points and cash that in for or redeem that for cash or PTO. So we'll listen to calls if they think that they have a good one that is going to be a value add for the rest of the team. But otherwise, I'm really only auditing calls with established employees if I start to see a dip in performance, right? And the reason why, first, I want to make sure that it's not something on my end. Like, am I giving them bad data? Do they have a bad VoIP? What do I mean by that? For example, early 2024, we switched to a VoIP, which is like a phone, like a internet phone, basically. We were on Grasshopper, which is an application that we use to dial into Mojo. And after a couple of weeks, two of my virtual assistants, for two of them, it wasn't a problem, but for the other two, I started to see a dip in contact rate, dip in leads come in. So I started auditing their calls and then listening to it. And they had a bunch of big lags as soon as they were connecting with the seller to where they would be on the phone. They'd be like, hello, 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 right? And then all of a sudden the person can hear them. And it's going to be very, very hard to have a good conversation when it starts off like that. So then I switch instead of, some people, they might just fire them and be like, hey, you're not sending in any leads. You're gone, right? But I wanted to look at it and make sure it wasn't me not setting them up for success. And that was the case with Grasshopper. They were having bad connection because of Grasshopper. I switched them over to Google Voice and the problem was gone, right? So stuff like that. You want to make sure first, are they actually getting on the phone with people? Are they having conversations? Is it a good connection? And if it is, right, you also want to make sure it's not their internet, right? If it's not a bad VoIP, maybe they have a bad internet, make sure their internet is good. But if all of that is the same, and they are calling on good data, they are getting people on the phone, but they're just not sending in any leads, then you want to remind them of the importance of starting calls correctly, asking about other properties, and digging deep on uncertainty, right? So like, what do I mean by starting calls correctly? When we start a phone call, the only part of our call that is actually scripted is the opening part. And how does it look? Hey, is this Nate? Nate says, yeah, this is Nate. Hey, Nate, this is Nick. Hey, I was actually calling you about a property I think you own on Main Street. And I was curious if you were interested in selling the property there or curious in taking an offer, accepting an offer, whatever. But that's the only part of our call is scripted. And the parts that we really want to focus on is you're calling the seller by the first name. I'm not saying, hey, Mr. Holscher. I'm not saying, hey, Nate Holscher. I'm not saying Mr. and Mrs. Holscher, anything like that. I'm saying, hey, is this Nate? Nate says, yeah, this is Nate. Yeah, this is Nick. I want to sound like I'm a neighbor. I want to sound friendly, right? I also don't want to use the full address. I don't want to say 123 Main Street. I want to say just Main Street. Because if I say, hey, I'm calling about a property I believe you own on 123 Main Street in Tampa, Florida, they're going to be like, this is totally a cold call. You're just reading my address off of a screen, right? Whereas if I say, hey, Nate, this is Nick. Hey, man, I was actually calling you about this property I think you own over on Main Street. I was curious if you had any interest in selling it or if you had any interest in selling the property, right? That sounds a lot more like a neighbor than a cold caller from a call center. So we want to make sure that they're starting the calls correctly. They're calling the owner by first name. They're calling themselves by first name. They're using the property street name only. They're not using the full address. If they say no, we want to make sure they're always asking about other properties, right? Sometimes if I'm listening to calls, if they're not sending in leads, I'll start auditing their calls and listening to it. And if they say they're not interested in selling, they're just like, okay, thank you, have a good one, right? Thank you, have a good one, next one, right? They're just going through the motions. They're not digging in. They're not saying, okay, well, hey, no problem. Do you have any other properties or even some land in the area that you might be interested in selling? We get lots of leads from asking that question. So if they're not performing, they're underperforming, that might be why. Maybe they're not asking that question. And the last one is digging deep on uncertainty, right? And this was actually a pretty big one with my team in the last couple of weeks, is we had, and this is another reason why I say, if we have a good call, a particularly good one, then I will play that for the whole team so that they can all hear it and kind of get ideas from it, right? So like, for example, Carlos, he's really good at digging deep on uncertainty. And when I mean uncertainty, I mean people that like they say they're not interested, but it's not like a no, I will never sell this house. Leave me alone, go kill yourself, right? There's a difference between that and somebody that's like, no, probably not, or not at this moment, or I don't think so, not right now, right? A lot of the virtual assistants and some of the people that were underperforming on my team, they just say, okay, no problem. And maybe they even might ask if they have any other properties, but they just skipped right past the fact that that person just like, you could hear them debating on whether they wanted to sell it in their head or not, right? Carlos, he'll dig in on that. He'll be like, okay, well, it sounded like you weren't certain on that. It sounded like maybe you're thinking about it. Is there something that might get you to sell in the next, let's say, 6 months, 9 months? Like, is there something that would happen that would then, is there something that if it happened, it would then cause you to want to sell? Like, he'll actually dig in and ask those questions. And he'll even ask the same questions sometimes in like 2 or 3 different ways, just frame different ways to get more information from sellers, right? He doesn't do this with everybody. If somebody tells him, no, I'm not interested in selling, dude, kick rocks. He's like, okay, no problem. Thank you for your time. Do you have any other properties by chance? Okay, thank you. Have a good one, right? He's only digging in on those people that they show a little bit of hesitation, right? And if you have some people that are and some people that aren't, there's going to be a pretty big difference in the amount of leads that they're sending in. Because you'd be surprised how many people that they might say, no, probably not at this time. I don't think so. But if you dig in and you're like, okay, well, is there any chance that you might sell in the next 6 months? Or, is there anything that if this happened, you probably would want to sell? Just digging a little bit deeper, right? Those are some ways that you can deal with underperformance. And if all of those are the same, if they're doing all of that and they're just not getting leads, then maybe they're not a good fit, right? But if they're doing all that, I have not had to fire anybody that has been able to do this. I have never had to fire somebody that followed the script, the 4 pillars of qualification, that actively listened. I've never had to fire somebody for that. The only reasons I've ever had to fire people are not showing up, not being coachable, not getting their hours in, and being inconsistent with like showing up, literally showing up. But if somebody has been able to, if they're able to maintain energy, oh, that's another thing. I've had to fire people before for just literally like, hey, Paul, calling you about a property I think you own on 123 Main Street. You interested in selling? Like, I've had to let people go with that before. And sometimes they'll have high energy in the interview, right? They've gotten good at interviewing, but then they suck when you hire them. And that's another reason why I like the 2-week probationary period. But if you can get people, if you focus on this part and you make sure that they're auditing the calls and you're making sure that you're putting them in a situation to where the only way that they're not going to perform is due to their performance and not anything outside, then they're going to be fine. I've never had somebody that has done all this and still just didn't get any leads. So, and then the last thing is team culture. We give team bonuses on top of individual bonuses. I already kind of talked about that. I make sure to have an open door policy, right? So we have weekly meetings twice a week with the team, but every time I say, hey guys, if there's something that you want to talk about, just me and you, like you don't want to bring it up on this team call, that's completely fine. Please just let me know. I'll schedule a Google Meet with you guys anytime. We can hop on the phone. We can talk it out, right? I say that literally every single week so that they know if there's something they want to talk about, like I'm open. I'm going to listen to them, right? A lot of people, especially Filipino virtual assistants and anybody in other countries, they're terrified to get fired. And because of that, they're terrified to ask questions because they don't want people to think that they're incompetent. I've had virtual assistants that literally will sit there and like try to figure stuff out themselves and just struggle just because they didn't want to ask for help, because they didn't want to seem as incompetent to us, because they didn't want to get fired, right? So I tell them every single week, hey guys, if you got anything that you want to talk about, whether it be business, personal, whatever it is, shoot me a message. We can hop on a call, right? So have an open door policy. Make sure that they see you as a person and not just some investor in America sending money across the country. Will this be available on the drive? Do you mean the notes or the call record? Well, both of them will. Yes, they'll be available on the drive. I'll upload this afterwards.
All right, perfect. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Team meetings at least once per week. We meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And again, a lot of the time it's hey, what'd you guys do this weekend? You guys seeing anything different in the leads this week? Like, how are the sellers treating you? You getting a bunch of people telling you to like kill yourself? You know what I mean? We're not talking like it's less training and it's more just like getting people together and letting them be comfortable, right? Because especially in the Philippines, like there's just a difference. A lot of the callers that we've brought in for the first like couple of months, even, they're pretty reserved. They don't really want to talk too much. So you have to get them talking. You have to get, hey, what'd you do this weekend? What do you like doing outside of work, man? What lights your fire outside of work? And we talk to them every week. We ask them about their families, what's going on in their life, how their kids are doing, how they spent their weekend, all this sort of stuff. And like we started, when I brought these people on, a lot of them were very reserved and they just, yeah, it was good. I just spent time with family, blah, 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 you know, stuff like that. And they'd only really talk if they were asked to talk or if they were asked a question. Now we get on a meeting and like, I'll join the meeting and maybe I'll be a couple of minutes late or something. And one of my virtual assistants will be like talking shit to Gabe, like messing with him and stuff, or like talking shit to each other. And like, that's amazing. I love that because that means that they're comfortable with each other, right? So I want to have team meetings at least once a week so that they can see each other's faces, build relationships with each other and us so that it feels more like a family rather than, again, I'm sitting in some closet in the Philippines making phone calls for this investor who just sends me money every week. And you know, it'll go a long way if you make them actually feel like they're a part of your company rather than just like an extension that's just making cold calls. So you want to meet with them every week. Friendly competitions and easily viewed stats for accountability. So let's see. I'll go to share this screen. So we have, I was telling you about our best and funniest call competitions. So on a monthly basis, we have a best and a funniest call competition. So throughout the month, my virtual assistants, when they have either really good calls or they have really funny calls, they'll submit it. They'll put it onto they'll put it into a Google form or a Google it's a Google form. They'll drop the call recording into a Google form and it'll show up in like an archive. And then every month we'll go through it. We'll pick out a couple of qualifying ones and we'll play them for the team on our meeting. And the good calls, we get a lot of really good training resources out of it, right? We'll play it. I'll ask them, hey, what did you guys hear there that was really good? Did you learn anything from this call? Like, is there something that maybe Carlos did that you're not doing in your calls that maybe you're going to start doing in yours because you heard it here? Stuff like that. And then also for the funniest calls, we laugh about it, right? It's funny. We have some hilarious phone calls. And it lightens up the day, right? Because a lot of the time, and especially beforehand, before we did stuff like this, if somebody was like yelling at my virtual assistants, they would be like afraid to say anything, and they just might either like hang up or say they were sorry or be like overly professional with like some crackheads that we have in Florida because they didn't want us to get angry at them or think that they were unprofessional or whatever. But when I did this, then you actually had like they would laugh about the calls. They'd start like kind of giving it back to sellers. If they had a crazy seller, they'd kind of start messing with them a little bit. And it just gets them to be a little bit more comfortable, right? They're happy. They're not so much like tight butthole, like I can't get fired, I need to just perform, right? It just gets them to relax a little bit. So we'll have once a month, we'll meet, we'll have a best and funniest call competition. There's a point system. They get 1 point per call submission that meets the basic criteria. They get 3 points for a call that are selected by the finalists, which is me, Gabe, and Bella. And then they get 5 points for either winning the best call or funniest call categories. And then there's a redemption system, right? If they get 10 points, they can redeem it for a $10 cash bonus, 30 points, $35 bonus, 50 points, $60 bonus, or 5 additional hours of paid time off. Right. So again, this shows not only does this go a long way for building team culture, but also a lot of these people have worked for other wholesalers. Do you think any other wholesaler has ever given them stuff like this? Probably not. Right. So they're like, man, I love this job. Like, I feel like at home here, they care about me. I have friends. Like it's not just coworkers. I'm actually like, I enjoy talking with these people. So that goes a long way to build culture, to build team, build team culture and just get people excited to come to work every day, man. Because especially cold calling, it can be, especially when you're sitting making phone calls, it can be draining. So sometimes stuff as little as that, while it seems little to us, like that can make their entire day, their entire week over there. Let's see. I think that was pretty much it, but let me go back to my notes here. Last one is why I can't get this out of the way. Last one is, friendly competitions and easily viewed stats for accountability. I'll show you guys the stats one more time. But then the last thing, keep them updated on the progress of their leads. That's another thing that I found that a lot of other virtual assistants did not have in their old employers that they really, really appreciate with us, is that they actually, like, they would say, look, I would send in a lead and I would have no idea what happened to it. I wouldn't know if it was a good lead, wouldn't know if it was a bad lead. I wouldn't know if they got it under contract. I wouldn't know anything about it. So I'm just sending in leads and I don't even know what's happening, right? So we keep them updated. We tell them, hey, that lead that you sent in last week, Carlos, that's a really good lead, man. You qualified that really well. We actually got an appointment with them next week. Their asking price is a little bit high, but I think that if we get in front of them, we can probably get them down a little bit, right? They love hearing that sort of stuff rather than just, I guess I'm just going to make phone calls and send these leads into the ether and just hope that this real estate investor pays me every week, right? So keep them updated on their leads. Let them know what's going on. Let them know if you book an appointment with one of their leads, let them know. Celebrate it in the group chat. Say, hey man, we just booked a lead. We just booked an appointment with the lead you pushed in last week. Great job. We'll let them know if you get them on. We'll let them know if we get them under contract. If you get them under contract, announce it. Hey, we just locked up Bella's lead, or we just locked up Jurley's lead that she sent in last week. Great job, Jurley. Let's get another one, guys. Right? Just builds rapport with your team, builds team culture. It gets everybody fired up. And then last and not least, pay them weekly and pay them on time. I've had a lot of virtual assistants that have said stuff like, I had to wait 2-3 weeks for pay. I would be they would say that the pay was coming Friday and then it wouldn't come till the next Friday, or they would only pay me once a month, stuff like that. I pay them every Friday. Every single Friday they get paid and they love it. They get super excited about it. If we close a deal, they get a commission that day. So, and they appreciate that a lot. And doing stuff like this, guys, I know that you've probably heard, because I hear it all the time. Like, people struggle with virtual assistants. They hire them, they fire them, they hire them, they fire them. They can't find one to work out. My first question whenever I hear that, and I don't usually ask this, but the first thing that I'm thinking is, what have you done to make that virtual assistant successful? What have you done to put them in a position to do well? A lot of people, they just hire virtual assistants and they're like, hey, here's a dialer, go get me leads. You can't expect somebody that's living across the ocean in a completely different country, getting paid $5-6 an hour. You can't expect them to just go get you leads with no direction and no motivation, right? So I think the reason why a lot of people think the virtual assistants don't work is because they don't work with those virtual assistants. They don't pour into those virtual assistants. They don't try to train them. They think that they're just robots that are just going to produce leads for them.
You gotta give them the tools to work with, man. Otherwise, they've got nothing.
That's it.
That's in anything.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's just building a company. You can't have employees that they have to see the vision. They have to be excited to come to work. They have to be motivated, or else it's not going to be a successful business. You're going to have them constantly looking for better opportunities. You're going to have them constantly just trying to get through the motions. You think any of my virtual assistants are looking for other jobs, looking for better opportunities? Hell no, they're not. Hell no, they're not. I don't have any concerns about that, because I know that nobody's going to treat them as well as we are. Right? So this goes a long way. And Paul, DJ, you guys don't have any virtual assistants yet. You don't absolutely have to hire your own virtual assistants. This is all great if you're going to. There are options out there for hiring management systems that will manage and hire these virtual assistants for you. But you want to make sure that they're doing stuff like this. If you're not going to do it, you want to make sure that the people that you hire, they're going to be doing stuff like this. And they're not the people that just, hey, we're going to hire this person. We're going to collect $8 an hour from Paul, and we're going to pay this virtual assistant $4 an hour, and we're going to collect the $4 an hour. We're not going to do anything. There's virtual assistant companies out there that do that. So you want to make sure that you deal with somebody. If you don't want to take the time to build this kind of culture, then you have to make sure that the management company that you're using is building that culture. And I actually have ideas to actually start building out something like this for people that don't want to build. Like, I'm going to try to replicate my systems and my culture with other virtual assistants to try to place them with you guys and other people that are looking for it. That's obviously, I'm in the early stages of that, but hopefully someday I'll have that for you guys. So, let's see. The last thing. Oh yeah, I didn't show you guys all the stats. I just did this within the last couple of days or maybe weeks, but I like putting all of our statistics right up front so they can all see, not only can they kind of have little friendly competitions, but they can also see, hey, how do I stack up with the other cold callers, right? And I've actually learned some stuff through this. So one of my oldest cold callers has the least amount of leads and the least amount of deals. So guess who I'm auditing calls for? Guess who I'm doing a little bit of extra motivation, encouragement, switching stuff up, trying to get her, I'm working with Claire. I'm trying to get her up, right? Because Carlos has been working with us for 6 months less than Claire, and Carlos has already got more deals, right? But here I can look at, all right, how many leads do we have? And they can look at it, which is more important even than me looking at it. How many leads do I have this week in comparison to the rest of the team, right? Claire's having an amazing week. See, she's crushing it this week, man. She's got 6 qualified leads, and that Carlos is at only 2. Right. So this allows them to see where do they stack up in relation to everybody else. Leads last week. How did I do last week? Leads this month. Leads last month. Carlos leading the charge on both of those. Leads this year. Carlos crushing it. Right. He's setting the standard for my company. He's raising the bar, because again, every time I listen to that dude's call, he is always on point with starting the conversation. He's always got high energy and he digs deep. If he hears some uncertainty, he's always digging deep. He's never going through the motions. And this is what it shows. It shows that he doesn't go through the motions because he's crushing it. I mean, he's got almost double the leads of the next person, right? And then deals this year. The only 2 deals that we've got this year from cold calling so far that have been actually pushed in this year from cold calling is from Carlos, right? And then warm or hot leads. Hey, if you haven't had a lot of leads in the last week, in the last month, what are we looking at all time right now? How many hot leads are we working from you guys? Well, Carlos has got 40 warm or hot leads. Alex has got 25. Claire's got 22. Jurley's got 21. So we can see how they stack up against each other currently, not even just like on a weekly basis, but this is throughout our whole CRM, the leads that you sent in. This is how many that you have that are warm and hot, meaning like they're actionable opportunities in the next 1 to 3 months. And then an all-time cold calling deal leaderboard, right? Alex is leading the charge with 10 deals. He's been around for the longest. He's probably got 6 months on the next most experienced employee, but he's got 10 deals. Bella, she's actually a lead manager now, so she's not cold calling anymore, but she's got 5 deals. Carlos has got 3, and he's been with us the shortest time, right? So then Jurley and Claire, they can look at this and be like, man, Carlos is beating us. I need to get more deals so that I can't have Carlos, who's been with us for 6 months less, have more deals than me, right? So it gives them not only an ability to see where they stack up, but hold each other accountable. So
that's probably what I'm going to have to wind up doing anyway, because all the time that I have on my spare time that I have, is hire VAs, you know what I'm saying? So, but I've been running people for so long. I'm real good at reading people, and just like you're saying, the way you talk to them, the way you got to give them the tools, you got to give them the initiative, you got to talk them up.
Yes, they
have problems, you got to solve them, and you can't be an idiot or an asshole about it. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You have to have a little compassion, So that's kind of the route I'm probably gonna have to go anyway, because like I said, all the spare time I have,
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you don't have the time to make cold calls all day, then yeah, absolutely. Go hire virtual assistants, but you have to, that time that you're not calling, like you have to pour into them. You have to encourage them. You have to help them, right? Put them in a position to be successful. Again, you can't just hire them and be like, hey, here's a dialer, go give me some leads.
Right. No, it doesn't work like that. Yep. There's a lot more to it than just, not unless you hire one that you're paying better, that already has experience at it, and that's good, you know what I'm saying? So, usually they're working with somebody like you know what I'm saying? They're not looking for another job. Correct. So,
and a lot of these people, they don't want to go start their own. I actually posted something today about this. The guy that handles my Instagram and socials posted it, but it was the video was basically about me talking about, hey, like I've tried to hire American cold callers before, and the problem that I run into is that, first of all, if you're paying them like a commission or even a base, like it's hard for them to make cold calls for somebody else for a commission and maybe a small base, right? They're going to lose motivation a lot quicker because they're like, man, what else could I be doing in the land of opportunity? What else could I be doing, right?
Right.
What other jobs are out there that I could be doing that are going to be better than this? That's either that person or it's somebody that they want to start their own wholesaling company and they just want to get in and learn from you so that they can start their own deal, right? So if you do that, you're always going to have to be hiring new people, right? I've hired American employees that they make cold calls. They get one deal. They don't even like acquire the deal. They just cold call that lead. And then we end up getting that deal under contract. They're asking me for a raise. Right. Stuff like that. They want more commission. They want a higher base, right? Just because they had an ounce of success versus somebody in the Philippines, somebody in the Dominican Republic, they don't have as many options as somebody in America does. And so they're absolutely thrilled with just being able to have a stable income, a stable workplace. They don't have to worry about getting a new boss in the next 2 months because they have to keep flip-flopping jobs. Like they're just happy to be there. They're super thankful for the opportunity. So I'm a huge proponent of virtual assistants, as you can see.
Right. Well, I figured it out. I need to clone you or somebody in a third world country.
There you go.
So
it should be easy to do. It should be easy to clone me.
Well, maybe cloning you, yeah, but finding one in a third world country.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Nate?
Do you think?
Sorry.
Like kind of the questions go around, like I know in America, like I have buddies that are like trying to leave their, $60,000 job to find a $65,000, $70,000 job. I feel like the Philippines just like aren't like that.
No.
It's like,
No.
not the money, but the increments. It's like, first of all, I don't like even from last night meeting other investors that are cold calling, like $6 an hour is nowhere near like what other people are paying people in the Philippines. So it's like I think when I told the Anthony, the guy I just hired, like $6 an hour, I think on his Philippine, like his onlinejobs.ph, his requested salary was like $450, which is like a big jump from what.
Yeah. And I do that on purpose. I want to pay them more. I want to pay them a little bit higher than average, but if I pay them higher than average, I can expect higher than average, right? Hey, you're getting paid much more than the average in your country, and I'm giving you all these resources to be successful. So I need performance out of you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And again, if you're hiring them and you give them $4.50 an hour, then they're always looking for somebody like me that's going to offer them $6 an hour.
Yeah.
Here's the thing is, and you want to find somebody that's like a go-getter in the sense of like, they want to perform really well, but they want to perform really well for you. They don't want to learn what they can from you so that they can go then do their own thing or demand a raise from you or something like that. Like my virtual assistants, they're go-getters in the sense of, like I said, they want to perform well, but they don't have an interest of going out and starting their own company. They might have an interest of like maybe doing a little bit more junior acquisition or lead manager stuff, but like they're happy, man. They're happy to be able to collect, what is it? I mean, on average, $250 a week, right? 6 times 40, $240 a week base salary, with incentives and bonuses. I give them PTO. I give them, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. Like, you're looking for people that they just want a home. They want to work. Like I always ask our virtual assistants, like, what do you want out of a company? What do you want out of a boss? And it's always, I want somewhere that I can, like, I know I'm going to stay there. I know I'm going to be there. I know that they're not going to go out of business in 3 months and I'm going to have to find another job. Like, I just want somewhere that I can count on raising my family and taking care of my family with it.
They want stability.
That's it. They want stability, and they're in a country that doesn't really have much stability. So you can offer them, you can offer them something that gives them stability, and they know as long as they show up, and as long as they have a smile on their face, and as long as they're doing the best that they can, they're going to get $240 from me plus bonuses every single week.